My name is Carter. I love talking about movies, music, comics, and games. If you're interested in any of that, I have so many videos on my channel. And I just got out of seeing I.S.S. When I say that, I'm so used to saying that. I saw it last night. I was wanting to go a little earlier, but I ended up seeing it on Tuesday just because it didn't really seem like a movie just because I totally forgot and it didn't really get a lot of hype. So I decided to go check it out last night. So the movie's premise, and yes, I said premise. I was getting roasted on TikTok for saying that for some reason. Anyways, the movie's premise, these American and Russian astronauts are in the International Space Station and something occurs on Earth, and both the Americans and the Russians are told by their governments to take the ISS over. And I think that this is a movie to where the premise is really, really interesting, but the execution just isn't quite there. It's a lot like Jake Johnson's Self-Reliance from earlier this month that was exclusively on Hulu, to where both these movies started out with an interesting idea, right? And the execution just either didn't take hold of it completely. And so I guess I'll expand on that a little bit more in the end. But with the positives, I thought that the setting was super cool. The setting of having a thriller take place in an international space station. It's very confined, very unique, and very tense when it's, playing to that strength. And so I found myself really interested in the first third of the movie. I thought, wow, this is actually super cool. I'm really liking where this is going. And it introduces the characters. It takes time to build the Russian and American dynamics. A lot of different camera angles here that display security camera angles. I thought that was really, really great. And a few of the characters here are pretty charismatic, and so it makes it very, very easy to kind of get on their side. And so I enjoyed that part. There's a few, good character moments here. And any movie that uses Wind of Change by the Scorpions is going to get an automatic point from me. So as far as the story goes, like I mentioned, I enjoyed the first third, and kind of that's where it ends. I thought the first third to first half was pretty decent, and then it just takes a steep nosedive in the last half. The tension that they try and build up just really isn't there. Going into the mixed, the biggest kind of thing that bugged me in this was the tension. It builds and builds and builds, and then when the thing finally happens, that the Russians and the Americans are told to take over the ISS, it's supposed to be ramping up from there, and it really doesn't. It just slows down, and I feel like this is a movie that could have benefited from just a little bit more screen time for each of the characters and a little bit more of will they, won't they. This is a movie where it plays its cards very early on, and I would have enjoyed maybe seeing that the Russians didn't get those orders and that the Americans are going paranoid. It felt like it didn't take advantage of either side it could have gone. It could have gone totally zany, balls to the wall, totally crazy with this, with the Americans or the Russians being hunted by either side, and one person's going crazy and ordering, and you could have had a really interesting dynamic. Or you could have gone full thriller, full horror, to where it's very, very intellectual and you're not sure if the Russians got those orders, and everyone's playing mind games on each other, and the tension is just ramping, and maybe some people start to get killed off, and it's all misunderstandings. And you see parts of that in the screenplay and in the film that get played up. There's misunderstandings, maybe someone lies, something happens. And I felt like they just didn't commit to that idea, to where they kind of wanted to do their own thing, and they have a really interesting idea and they just don't execute on it, and that bothered me, and it honestly just kind of felt flat. So by the end of this film, I thought, well, that was just all right. Nothing to write home about. It was just okay. And I was like, oh man, it's just a bummer when you have a movie that has such a cool, unique idea, and it just kind of butchers it in the execution, to where you're like, oh, that's a bummer. And going into my negatives here, first off, I thought the score here was atrocious. It may have been that I was just sitting in an awkward part of the theater, but it's so high-pitched strings that just feels so discordant. I don't even know if that's a word. I feel like it is. It just feels so off and so strange. It's trying to put you on edge, but it doesn't do it in the right way, to where it just kind of bothers you the whole time. And the whole movie, I was like, oh my gosh, dude, turn the score down. It's atrocious. So that was quite a bit of a bummer too. And I feel like they could have done a little bit more at the sound design, especially in scenes where they're in space. And there's a lot of this that relies on characters not telling the truth, convenient character choices where something is explained in the first 5 minutes in a cool foreshadowing, which I like. But then there's certain character choices here that they just don't flesh out. Oh, yep, that happened. Oh, yeah, they did that. And it fleshes out some of it, but then other choices just don't get fleshed out at all. It feels like it was left on the cutting room floor, whether that's for the script stage or the actual editing the film stage. And so that was kind of a bummer as well. And the biggest thing here, honestly, I just got to reiterate, was they just didn't capture what I was hoping for. Maybe that's on me. I see that some people like this movie, some people don't. Me personally, I was hoping for a little bit more. I was hoping that maybe the direction would elevate the screenplay. Maybe they would go in a different direction altogether. With, like I mentioned before, I just think the way the story played out was overall disappointing. And there's a few moments in the third act that just kind of feel so underwhelming, and the ending was just bland. I didn't care for the ending. Overall, guys, I.S.S. is a movie to where it was just okay. Very forgettable. I'm probably going to forget this in a while. Right now, I'm going to give it like a 5 out of 10. Just forgettable. It's not great. It's not bad. It was just okay. So, if you're looking for a movie that captures paranoia of astronauts in space, you'll probably have to find something elsewhere, because this one for me was not it. Have you guys seen I.S.S? If you have, what did you think about it? Tell me down below if you think I'm right or wrong. But I gotta run off to class. So as always, my name is Carter. Have a great rest of your day.